So what you're telling me is the genius that is Vince McMahon is likely going to put one of his world championships on a guy who was buried for being half-assed worker and phoning in WrestleMania matches in a show broadcast from a murderous, repressive country.
Well, I mean, it's not like he's got Dean Ambrose to headline the show.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? Travis, Brother Bob, Smarkdown Radio. So, as excited as we were to talk about wrestling last week, there is some exciting stuff to talk about. I want to talk about NXT because NXT, in my opinion, the takeovers are the best show anywhere on the planet. Okay, they just are in and out consistently, and it's even more infuriating because it is a WWE product, and it's amazing show in and show out, and we get this crap on the main roster.
Though we do have to specify that while it is under the WWE umbrella, if you ask anybody other than Triple H, and possibly even Triple H, they will tell you it's not a WWE product. It is their developmental brand.
Well, that's
developmental.
Fine. It's owned by WWE.
Yes,
that's my point. It's the same. It's the same damn company that owns it. And you're telling me that your developmental brand is putting on the best shows in the world. Okay, I would put any given NXT show, any NXT TakeOver show against any other show on the planet. Okay, and it may not always be better, but it's a coin flip. I guarantee you, because though the TakeOver shows are just everything WWE should be. So I do want to talk about that. I'm wearing the Adam Cole Bebe shirt because, congratulations to Adam Cole. We can talk a little bit about Britt Baker to NXT confirmed. Not with that scowl, right?
Not so much. Yeah, she obviously wasn't buying that whole Stephanie McMahon creating women's wrestling thing. I don't know.
I want to talk a little bit about that too. I feel like that picture's being taken out of context, but we'll get there. Let's go ahead and start with the opening graphic, because I think for the hardcore fans, the story of the week is the Dean Ambrose / Jon Moxley podcasts. He sat with Jericho. The Jericho cast came out, and then he did a two-parter that was 2.5 hours with Wade Keller,
something like that. Yeah,
probably. Yeah, I mean, all told, like without commercials, if you're not a subscriber, they've got the commercials in there. I think it was an hour and a half per show. So You're looking at over 2 hours of total interview content with Wade Keller, and another hour plus with Jericho, right?
Correct.
And very much just like the graphic alluded to, proceeded to bury WWE creative. And I feel like the Jericho interview was a warm-up. We got a lot of really good stuff in the Jericho interview. And that was him chatting with his, a buddy of his, a guy he'd worked with. And it was his first interview, and it kind of opened the floodgate. And it just cascaded from there when he got into the Wade Keller interview, because not only did he buried creative in the Jericho podcast.
Sure did.
And the creative process.
Yep. But I mean, he really went in deep with Keller, and I think Wade had the benefit of Jericho kind of opening that door, and Wade being able to ask a lot of follow-ups to stuff that was talked about in Jericho's podcast, which allowed Dean to go more in depth on things.
So what we did learn from somebody and it came off different than like the Punk interview. The Punk interview did come off like there was a lot of malice there. Punk was really unhappy. There was obviously the legal battles going on and things like that. Moxley really isn't facing that. He left the company on good terms. There were alleged reports by the dirt sheets that he basically worked everybody backstage at WWE, and they thought he was coming back in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's probably not on good terms. He alluded to that on Keller's podcast where he's like, well, I'm never working a WrestleMania again. And Keller's like, yeah, not after this podcast. So, there were reports that perhaps he did, allude that this was going to be more of a break. And that's why he got the exit that he did, where they gave him the, goodbye tour, and they didn't really bury him on the way out the door because they thought, he was going to go away for a while. He's going to do a movie project, take a break, and then come back. And then Vince would have his funny guy in a hat with a red wagon again. But that is obviously not what happened.
Well, I mean, anybody thinking he had a movie project before, I don't know, the week before he left, they were just speculating because from that podcast we found out that his first mention of a movie project was when Vince called him to get him to extend his dates into that European tour, which was post-Mania.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of it was speculation. And he said that he didn't tell anybody. And so, yeah, a lot of it was just outright speculation. So, but it's not speculation anymore. We had confirmed, and the reason I wanted to compare that is because this doesn't seem like a bitter guy on the way out the door. This seems like a creatively frustrated guy who is voicing, years of pent up, I was reined in and really my career could have been 100 times better than it was. My runs could have been better. So many things could have been better. And that he was frustrated, but this isn't like an angry guy taking shots out the door. This is a guy trying to expose a very toxic culture. And it's no surprise, we had heard before these interviews that the backstage at WWE was really at an all-time low. Like morale was pretty bad. A lot of unhappy folks. We bury the show week in and week out because of creative. We're like, where are they coming up with these ideas? We get the pooper scooper story. Pooper scooper.
That's some good shit.
Good shit. So, but the Jericho interviews kind of ruminated, and everybody was like, ooh, the Keller interviews way more damning, man. Like and we talked about, that's what I was talking about in the open of the show, man. You're telling me that Brock couldn't be interested enough to help Dean out by giving him a rub in that match and coming in, even the day before Mania, couldn't be bothered to come in and work on it. And Moxley's talking about there are guys that have been working on their matches for 6, 8, 10 months at the Performance Center. And when they kind of had an idea who they were going to work with at Mania, as soon as they did, working on it, they had rings in the hotel, in the conference rooms at the hotel. Guys were at the hotel all week practicing their matches. Everybody wants to steal the show at Mania except Brock.
Yep.
And nobody, I understand nobody's ever going to say Brock's a wrestling guy. Brock's there for his money. And we've all known that for 10 years?
Pretty much.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. And even Dean said that, Moxley said that. He's like, that's fine. If you're there to get your money, that's fine. But that kind of behavior really, it's a huge thumb in the, it's a huge poke in the eye. It's your thumbing your nose at your fellow wrestlers, your fellow sports entertainers, your co-workers, guys that you really count on in some cases to help you make that money you like. And it was just, I was mortified to he's like, I'll take any bump you want. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll do this. I'll do that. And he just came up with all these ideas and nothing would go. And Brock was just disinterested. I'm not surprised because we've heard this about Brock before. He's very, whatever. It's going to be fine. We'll go out there. But to do that on Mania, it's just like, well, man, like well, I don't even know what to say. It does not, like, it's hurts him. Absolutely hurts Brock. It hurts the company, especially if they put the title back on him, right?
Well, WWE set themselves up for that when they offer the part-timer guys these big contracts, these big guaranteed contracts. I mean, your general wrestlers have a guarantee, and then they have perks, and perks such as, well, if you're in so many main events, you get X amount more. If you have the best show on the card, you get X amount more. Things of that nature. I am assuming Brock's giant, huge money contract is all like just guaranteed giant, huge money. I'm like, he's getting paid so much that I'm assuming that there's probably a whole lot less perks and a whole lot more guaranteed. And if that's the case, then what reason does he have to put on the best match in that card? What reason does he have other than, personal pride, which, he's not a wrestling guy. He's not a guy who, cares that much about the product. He's there to get that paycheck, and, as long as he's being paid, he's going to come out, he's going to put on a match, and he's not going to care quite as much as the other guys who want to have the best card match on the show because they are a wrestling guy or because they want that bonus.
Well, Moxley talked about that too, like the pay structure needing to change and things like that, and it's very, very true. Like when you consider, I actually didn't realize that they were still like on the house show pay structure.
Mm-hmm.
That was very interesting to hear. I mean, he just confirming everything we thought about the creative process, how you're playing to an audience of one, which is a 70-something-year-old guy that's out of touch with reality. It confirmed everything. It made Brock look like a real piece of crap, and that's not a big stretch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unbelievable to see that. And this is a guy. The more I listen to him talk, and I'm glad he did these interviews, and I hope he does more. Not necessarily talking about WWE, but just more in general.
Yeah.
Because I'm beginning to think this is one of the most creative minds working in the business today in terms of like actually being in-ring talent. Like, this dude's got tons of ideas, tons of like, he's just one of these guys that's wired, all he thinks about is wrestling. Like, that's it. He's just dialed in. He waking up at night with, a line for a promo, cutting promos in the mirror. Like, he lives for wrestling. And that's going to be a huge win for AEW, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is like going to be huge.
After watching the Brian Pillman panel at Starrcast, and then hearing what Moxley had to say in these two podcasts over the week, I'm not saying that there ever will be anybody on the level of Brian Pillman, but I think Moxley's going to be maybe the closest we're going to get, because he sounds like a guy who's got all these ideas. He's definitely a guy who can get over the crazy, over-the-top character, and I think he might be like the closest thing we'll ever see to another a Pillman-type character, because he does have that drive. He does have that creativeness, and he's willing to put in the work, and he can pull off that kind of character. And there was just a lot of similarities when you hear, them talk about Pillman and, him calling people at 3 a.m. to like talk to them about ideas for matches, and him, trying to work the boys in back. And then you hear Dean talking about, coming up with all these ideas on the road with Roman, and constantly trying to talk Vince out of an idea he thinks is poor, and into a better choice. And his having to kind of not talk to anybody backstage before he left, and telling Vince on the phone he's working on a film project when he's shooting his trailer for the AEW Jump. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there between the two, and I really hope Moxley gets the chance to prove me right in that.
Well, he's gonna get the chance. One of the things, by the time Pillman was really entrenched in the WWE, he was having so many injury problems.
Well, I mean, that car accident, that car accident, where he just completely destroyed his ankle, shattered it in multiple places, and then had to have surgery, got a staph infection, had to have a surgery to, after that, and then re-injured it. I mean,
yeah. He was just never right, man.
Yeah.
And he was a shell. I mean, his promos obviously were there, but in the ring, he was really a shell of his former self.
Yep.
And that was really sad. But it'll be interesting to see Dean transition to Moxley. We're there. He's made his appearance, but moving forward, what he's going to be in AEW and what we're going to get. It's definitely a really exciting time in terms of watching him develop, because this is a guy that clearly loves the business. And I know that nowadays, especially, there are a lot of guys who are in it just, from the money, right? And that's fine. Not that they don't respect the business and things like that, but they don't have that deep-seated love, that hardcore fan love.
Yep.
where they're constantly looking to improve not just themselves but the business. That's something that not everybody has anymore.
Exactly. And I mean, WWE has this tendency now to try to bring in former football players, former collegiate wrestlers, those former MMA fighters. And while some of them, like Ronda Rousey, did grow up on the product and do enjoy it and want to be there putting on the best matches because of growing up on the product, there are others who really aren't. I mean, and when you have a situation where you bring somebody into the company who has no affinity for pro wrestling other than, all right, well, my sports career in another field's over, I guess I'll do this. I don't know how you can expect them to put on the same kind of matches to the same caliber and put as much into it as these guys who've been working 10 years to get a sniff at WWE. I think it's a different beast altogether.
Yeah, and Lesnar's the most glaring example of that, because he's the worst example, best worst example. He really detests huge portions of the wrestling business, right? He doesn't like the travel, he doesn't like the schedule, all those things. He's not a people person. Whereas I think there are some people who they don't love the business, but they don't hate it either.
Yeah.
They're kind of, they like what they do, that provides them a good living, all that things. They're not in love with it. But they're if they were in that same position and they had somebody come to them and pitch them a ton of match ideas and really, let's go steal the show, they could get into that, because they're working with somebody, they're collabing with somebody, they want to do good so they can make more money. But Brock just gets such a preferential treatment and so much more money, he just doesn't care, right? And he showed up to Mania at 3:00. This is according to Moxley, 3:00 for a 5:00 start, because it was West Coast Mania. So he shows up at 2 hours before the opening match, and they have nothing planned for their match.
Yeah,
that's just, I mean, that's Bush. That's super Bush League. It's super unprofessional.
I mean, I'm sure Brock went in thinking, oh, well, I'm going to suplex him, then I'm going to suplex him, then I'm going to suplex him, and he's going to hit me a bunch, and then I'm going to suplex him, and then I'm going to suplex him, then we're going to go home, and I'm going to hit him with an F5, and it's going to be over. Because that's pretty much the recipe for a Brock Lesnar match. Those are your steps you need to go through.
Sure. And like Moxley said, Brock, it came off like Brock felt like he was just doing him a favor by getting in the ring with him. And and like just listening to Moxley lay out all of those ideas. And he's like, I don't even know if half of these are good, but we didn't get a chance to do anything, and the match was crap. Like he's like, it was whatever, okay, as a standalone match, but it could have been a show-stealing match.
Yep.
And when you listen to him lay out, like, hey, can I do a tack bump? I'll take a tack bump. Hey, like, let me start by macing him in the eyes, right? Like, you I'll take everything you got, everything he has. Like, he can just pound me into oblivion, and then like right towards the end, I flip him off, and then he just finishes killing me because I'm going to die. It's Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
But he doesn't break me in terms of my will.
Yep.
And that like that's an awesome story to tell, right? Like that's who Dean Ambrose was to the fans. Like he was kooky and whatever and wild and crazy because Vince. But like, and he got that over because he's talented as hell. But we all thought like he was that guy. He was the guy that you could beat him, and he was just gonna smile at you and keep coming.
Yep.
Over and over again. And you go in there, and Brock would have looked like Brock, would have looked strong as hell, right? Like wasted Dean Ambrose, and it wouldn't have hurt Dean. It would have got Dean even more over because flipping him off and not giving up and just forcing Brock to basically kill him, and then you take him off TV for a month or whatever and bring him back, and it just magnifies everything about both of those guys.
Yeah, but this is the WWE, and that would have made sense.
So we wind up with Raw being another unmitigated dumpster fire, right?
Well, that's what I come to expect from Raw.
It was awful, man. Like I didn't make it all the way through the show. I tried to watch the Hulu version. I was like, we're doing a podcast. I should try and watch Raw. I got a bad Roman Reigns Usos like 6-man match with another mediocre Shane promo claiming to be best in the world. And then I got bad women's matches, and then I got the beatdown. Like
you got Vince McMahon as a puppet.
Yeah,
he must have that puppet cancer, like when Angel had that on the Angel TV show.
I do not have puppet cancer.
I just, I am just. It is mind-boggling to go from watching TakeOver to watching Raw.
Yeah,
it is just absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot understand how a company is capable of putting on such a good product only to turn around and put on such a piece of garbage like 48 hours later.
Well, I mean,
it's just beyond me.
We've had weekends in the last year where we went from amazing product by both. You'd have a Ring of Honor show on the same day at the New Japan show. So you'd have to try to get through 2 shows, and then the next day on Saturday there would be a TakeOver, and then on Sunday there would be a WWE pay-per-view. And I couldn't ever figure out in this last year how we could have 4 wrestling shows in a weekend, and WWE would be at the very bottom of the barrel of the 4. Like regularly it was NXT and New Japan in the top 2, followed by Ring of Honor, and then at the bottom of the barrel, WWE. And I can't understand when you have that much talent and that much money, how you can consistently be so bad.
Well, we've learned that it's because of Vince McMahon. That's it. It's Vince. Vince still micromanages everything. You and I speculated that, I don't know, months ago. We were talking, I said on a show, I was like, we're not backstage. I don't know, but my guess is Vince is still back there micromanaging everything when we were talking about why the show was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, do we blame the writers, or is Vince still micromanaging everything. This was before the Road Dogg incident and before creative changes and before things started to leak. And I was like, I have to assume that Vince has still got the final word on everything. And what we found out in the last, 3 to 4 weeks is that not only is that true, it's maybe more true than ever.
Yeah.
He's throwing scripts out the window and making people rewrite, and everything that goes on air has to be approved by Vince, and everybody there is writing for an audience of one.
Yep.
So that's what you get. You get a big pile of garbage for a big man child that likes fart jokes and poop humor and good shit, man. That's good shit.
And we could even somewhat look past those things. I mean, we've in the past had, DX peeing on Disciple of Apocalypse motorcycles. We've had outhouses dropping poop on people. I mean, we've had it, but at the time, it seemed like they were booking wrestling with stupid stories. Now it sounds a whole lot like, and it definitely feels like, they're booking stupid stories and throwing in some wrestling. From the way Dean described it, Vince doesn't seem to care a whole lot about the matches, and the people can go out and have a amazing match and come back and just get torn up by Vince because it didn't tell the story he wanted told. And that's a problem. I mean, if you're putting on a wrestling product, the wrestling's kind of important, Vince.
Well, apparently not to him. And you and I have had this argument about like Bray. And you get, well, it's all Bray. It's all Bray. Bray's doing everything. This is all Bray's brainchild. Bray figured out how to write to an audience of one so he can get paid.
Yeah.
And I mean, God bless him.
And I mean, you notice while he's on TV, what's the one thing Bray Wyatt isn't doing? I mean, he's on there with puppets, and he's dancing, and he's being creepy, and he's got inside jokes with Vince being the devil. But wait, what's the one thing Bray Wyatt isn't doing on WWE television?
Can we get a check at, seriously, we need to fact check it, add it into as a supplement, when Bray Wyatt's last match was.
Well, I mean, he came back last fall, but wasn't on TV and had wrestled house shows.
His last TV match.
But how long? I mean, how long was his injury? I mean, didn't he go almost a year or a full year between Manias?
Well, yeah, but we had heard he was healthy for months and months and months. And
yeah.
The other thing is he looks like he's in great shape,
the
best shape of his career, and just. Okay, well, that's nice. We'll have you put on a tank top that's, Bray's gym or whatever. And just, we'll
he's a body down now.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
So,
next week, Puppet Sonny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and with that, I feel like I don't have anything left to say about Raw other than, I couldn't have been less interested. And the big hook is it's their go home for the Saudi show, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm not watching the Saudi show.
Yeah, that doesn't help at all.
That doesn't help. I know for some of the fan base who doesn't care, they're gonna watch. For me, that's the big draw in, Taker and Goldberg in Saudi Arabia. So we're going to get a match that's, 15 years late. And
with the wrong guy from WCW.
Yeah, with the wrong guy from WCW in a brutally oppressive and murderous kingdom. That's what we're getting. No, I'm not watching.
But hey, we're going to get that first time ever match between Triple H and Randy Orton, right?
Don't care. Not tuning in to support their blood money.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna do it. It's not gonna happen. So, I mean, whatever. Raw's trash. It's garbage, and it just seems to continually be garbage week in and week out. What wasn't garbage was NXT.
Yep.
Bob, I don't know if you got to see any NXT.
I got to catch a little bit. there's just so much wrestling on. But yeah, I definitely wanted to catch Adam Cole and see him win the championship. So I'd made sure to watch that match, and I wanted to see if Velveteen Dream came out dressed as Stardust, and he did not. So
yeah, man, the takeover shows, you put them up against any other show, and chances are they're gonna be as good or better.
Let's specify the NXT TakeOver US shows.
Well,
because
yeah.
we do have more to talk about UK going up against other shows later.
Yes,
but
we are getting a NXT UK takeover.
Yeah,
and we have no idea what that's going to look like. But the NXT takeover shows, for my money, are the best wrestling product on the planet right now. I know they're in the forums and the groups. There's been a lot of debate about NXT and AEW with Double or Nothing. Look, if we're being honest, NXT was the better show.
See, my thing on a regular basis with NXT, I mean, it is always a really good product, but on a regular basis with NXT is that I watch guys wrestle and have matches that everybody says that is the best match ever. This is the best this guy's ever done. He was amazing this night. This was his best performance ever. WWE puts it off like in that same way. They say the NXT commentators like, this is the moment, this person became a star. And I sit back and I'm like, well, I've seen some really good matches from Adam Cole outside of WWE that, on the same level, if not better. I've seen ladder matches between Kevin Owens and El Generico that were better than Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. So I look at the NXT thing, and I'm like, all right, well, yeah, the show's good and fine, and I enjoy it, but I think it's so hyped that this is like something new, something amazing that we haven't seen before. I've seen so much of this prior to NXT. It just it doesn't strike me in the same way where when I watched Double or Nothing, seeing something brand new, a brand new product, every aspect of that was new. It was all these guys in a new company having to put on their own show. We didn't know how it would turn out with the boys running the show. We didn't know how production was going to be. Like every single minute of Double or Nothing, I had questions that I was waiting to be answered, and I was excited to see what those answers were. NXT, I'm like, all right, it's going to be good. I've seen these guys wrestle. I've seen them have amazing matches outside WWE. The only way this isn't going to be good is if something changes in creative and they're hamstrung like the main roster is. And I also know that as soon as those guys go up to the main roster, you're going to give them less than 3 months, and they're going to be buried at the bottom of the card and possibly not even on TV, such as good old Aleister Black currently. So, yeah.
So don't confuse excitement for something new with something that is, better. Okay. Like, because yes, Double or Nothing was new and it was shiny and it was exciting and it was very good. Like we put it over. I'm not there, and it's just the world today. It seems like when you say, like I'm saying NXT was better than Double or Nothing. You hated Double or Nothing, you stupid WWE mark. No, I sit here and put it over. I said it's a great fucking pay-per-view. I put it over and over and over and over again. Okay. But look, if you're looking at purely matches, right? Match of the night was clearly Cody and Dustin at Double or Nothing.
Yep.
And that was Meltzer gave it 5. I can't argue with that. That thing was emotional. It was everything we wanted. It was amazing. The color, it was awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Omega and Jericho was good. But if you compare full card to full card, I would rather see the full NXT card. Now, would I be sad that I missed out on Cody and Dustin? Yeah. If I was picking any one match out of both of those shows, Cody and Dustin. That was the best match out of both shows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but look, man, and I know you said, oh, I've seen them have really good matches elsewhere. Yeah, that's great. I've seen Kenny Omega have really awesome matches. I've seen Kenny Omega have better matches in New Japan than he had at AEW Double or Nothing. Okay, like, and not just one or two, like lots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that's not a stretch. So I get being excited about Double or Nothing, new project. It was a great show, but because it is so new, there were those things that just, it irked me, and it shows you how good WWE could be, because, and it's across the board. It's not just, and watching that NXT show illustrated this. It's not just the booking. It's the booking and creative, right? It's limiting people in ring. It's the announcers. It's the production and the camera shots and what Bucky Beaver's doing in the truck versus whoever's running the NXT production is doing. It's the stadium lighting. NXT WWE keeps everything really bright.
Yep.
So you can see all the crowd.
Well, until the third hour, it's recent, because Raw's been doing some.
They have been doing that, but for the most part, okay. Let's NXT. They have it for the intros. You can see the crowd and everything, and then they bring it down, and you really can't. You're focused on. It has that older feel
Mm-hmm.
of a wrestling match, where it's a sporting contest. The crowd isn't. It's the visuals of the crowd is not as important when the match is going on. That's a very fighter feel, like a boxing or a UFC feel in my mind. And the matches, man, like they were just, some of the matches on this card were just better than I expected. Like I expected it again to be really good, but look, man, Matt Riddle is something special.
Absolutely.
They've got something special there. And if they screw him up,
I'm sure they will.
I'm not saying they're I agree. They probably will screw him up.
I'm sure he'll come up to the main card, and Vince will say he has to wear a pair of wrestling boots, and needs to be in a pair of long tights or whatever, and give him some kind of silly like gimmick that he picks his nose, and I mean it's what they do. Yeah.
He is.
They'll, what will happen? He will be Matt Riddle, and he'll come out and he will taunt his opponents with riddles, and that will be the gimmick that Vince comes out with.
That's good shit.
That's good shit.
That's who you are.
Have him come out and make a riddle about a pooper scooper.
Yeah, the pooper scooper. Riddle is strong, man. I mean, they opened the show, and it was just, that was a great match. It was, I mean, and Roddy's great. Like, we've seen Roddy for years. And he just, the two of them put on just a clinic, man.
Mm-hmm.
That was just, and I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the show stealer match. But then you just get one after another, man. Like Dream, just absurd, and you see the glaring disparity of how a guy can't get over on the main roster because of his size or whatever. Vince just looks at him, right, and is like, well, I don't like him, or for whatever reason, or make him a silly gimmick or whatever. But Tyler Breeze and Velveteen Dream go out and just tear the house down, right? That ladder match, the four-way tag team ladder match, okay? The only thing more brutalized in WWE than the main roster creative, maybe Kyle O'Reilly's back at this point.
Yep.
Holy hamburger. And that ladder match, I will say this about that match. That is the first ladder match ever that I've ever watched. I've seen some pretty raucous we've seen some ladder matches over the years, right? That is the only ladder match I think I can, at least I can remember, that while I was watching it, I was legitimately afraid for the talent's safety.
Yeah.
It was bordering on unsafe, with like the level of, and the ferocity, and it was almost careless with some of the ladder spots,
and
borderline careless.
And that's the flip side of what I was saying about having seen these guys in matches before, that were better, is they have to do a whole lot to make that match when they finally get into like NXT or WWE better than their last one elsewhere. I mean, and O'Reilly and Fish have had some really good tag team ladder matches, and I think that's the other side of it. You know, they push themselves further than, you know, maybe they should, trying to get that over with the fans too, of like, hey, this is going to be our best one yet.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like I was genuinely, and you know what? Like they all went in there, and nobody was complaining, and it wasn't just one. It wasn't just one team that were flipping those ladders around and throwing each other into ladder. It was, so they all went in there with that idea. Okay. But I was like, holy poop. There were a couple of those spots and a couple of incidents where ladders went flying. I was like, oh man, like good Lord. Like somebody's going to get injured, not just hurt, injured. And thankfully, well, I mean, like O'Reilly had a hole in his back. They posted that picture on Instagram. He basically had a giant hole in his back from one bump. But that match, in terms of intensity, it's up there. And I mean, yeah, it was the feeling of that intensity and that almost unsafe thing, it added to it. It kept me right on the edge of my seat, and I don't think it needed that to be a great match. But if that's what they chose to do, I mean, that's shocking, just with a WWE product, letting them amp it up to that level. Normally they won't let you, but all those guys just over the moon performances. Obviously the women's match, very good. You know, Cole finally getting over, finally winning a title. Him and Gargano, what do you say? I mean, that's what a WWE show should be, man. It should just be, you should never have a bad WWE show ever. Like, if you have one, it's like, it was okay. Yeah. It was okay. That's going to happen maybe once or twice a year, right? Yeah. Like, you run into those, something just doesn't work out. You get one good match, two good matches, and then a handful of okay matches, and somebody had something go wrong. Yeah. You get that one pay-per-view that's like, that was the worst pay-per-view of the year, but it was okay, right? But we get those all the time. Well, and NXT has completely flipped the script, and they do the exact opposite, and you just get amazing, and then occasionally you get one that's like, okay, well, that was good, but it wasn't great. But it's just, I don't understand.
WWE also suffers from the too much of any one thing. You know, they go entire year of pushing like heels in like all the major title matches, and it's like heels win and beat up the good guys, heels win, beat up the good guys, heels win, beat up the good guys, and you're like, I'm so tired of this. And then they think to fix things, the idea, oh well, let's make all the champions babyface. Well, that doesn't solve the problem either. You need to be able to put on good, solid matches with a mixture of heel and face winners, as not to like just completely like lose your fan base. If all faces win all the time, it's boring. If all heels win all the time, it's aggravating. You kind of have to have a balance, and you have to be able to, if you are going to have a heel win, they have to put on a good match in doing it. They can't have a poor match and you just, continue to push them. And that's part of the problem with the main roster, where NXT doesn't have that issue. The sad thing is that probably a good 50% of the current NXT roster will end up, making their debut in WWE, getting completely wasted, and be out of the company in, 5 to 10 years. I mean, I don't for a minute think Vince McMahon is going to see Adam Cole and think that's the guy who's going to hold the world championship. I think Vince is going to see Adam Cole and say, there's a guy who's going to hold the 24/7 championship or go to 205 Live, and he's going to get frustrated and leave to go elsewhere. Same thing about Red Dragon. I see O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, coming up with the tag team, and Vince deciding he needs to split them up again. And then, sticking them in a never-ending feud that eventually ends up with them, jobbing out at the start of Raw and SmackDown.
Well, you can totally see, like, Undisputed Era getting called up as a faction, right? And talking a bunch of crap, and then having Lars Sullivan come out and just squash them.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
That's the kind of thing Vince would do.
I can even see Vince bring them up separately because he doesn't watch NXT. He doesn't watch the product. And we've seen him bring up Ricochet and Aleister Black and make them a tag team out of nowhere. And you were like, wait, what? And you see him take two guys who were feuding in Gargano and Ciampa and make them a tag team on the main roster. So I could see him say, all right, we're going to bring up these 4 guys and we're going to have them in a feud, or we're going to send 2 to SmackDown and 2 to Raw. Vince doesn't care about established story in NXT. So I could see that happen as well.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like it's crapshoot. Apparently it's a big hot dumpster fire behind the scenes at WWE.
We need to get Undisputed Era some puppets.
Yeah, I mean maybe if you get a puppet on the Firefly Experience, that'll bolster your chance of actually winning some matches and being on TV a little bit at least, right?
Hey, I can't lie. I would mark out for Puppet Cole, baby.
Puppet Cole.
Yeah.
That's good shit.
Yes.
Well, Bob, this is one of those weird, like, I don't have anything positive to say. I don't even want to talk about the Saudi show.
Nope.
But like, it is what it is. Well, I know Meltzer was postulating the theory that now we're going to get a Baron Corbin win over Seth Rollins to become champion, so that Brock can cash in on Baron Corbin.
Just like we've seen with the women's Money in the Bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vince follows formulas.
So, and the idea of Baron Corbin being a champion, like, it hurts my brain.
He would if he loses right away like that, he would have eclipsed Jinder as one of the worst champions in WWE history.
Yeah, I think he would probably be the new word. Like, who's on that list of, like, worst champs in WWE
Vince
history?
McMahon.
Vince. Yeah.
Yep.
Jinder's usually put on that list, unfortunately. Great Khali is usually on that list. I know he had the big gold belt, but it was at WWE at the time. He's usually in that mix. At least Ultimate Warrior was over with the kids, right?
The second Bob Backlund run.
Yeah,
where he dropped it to Diesel.
That's a pretty terrible one too.
Yep.
So, yeah, second Bob Backlund. I'm sure there's a couple of others that we're missing, but
Diesel had a pretty terrible run too. But at least he had a run.
He had a run.
Yeah.
And they pushed him to the moon. Other than that, like, those are kind of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But
Goldberg had a run during his first WWE run, right? Champ, like a 2-month one or something.
big gold belt, I think, right?
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
most of
for
the
Triple
runs
H.
that we're going to talk about are going to be like big gold belt runs,
Yeah.
because
Well,
Ziggler's run was pretty. Not, I mean, people popped when he cashed in, but I mean, it just kind of it petered out. Some of Punk's early runs were really bad. Like they didn't know what to do with him.
Yep.
They were just like, we're gonna put the belt on
Well,
you.
they put Money in the Bank on him two years in a row because they flubbed up the first time, and then they flubbed it up the second time too, which is goes to prove that this isn't a new thing with WWE. They've screwed up sure things numerous times.
But none of those would compare to like a 35 or 35-second, 2-minute title reign. Whatever it takes for Brock to come down and cash in on Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
Like if he holds the title for 7 minutes, that would officially be the worst title reign in WWE history.
Would it be worse than David Arquette's title reign in WCW?
No, I don't.
I think it would be worse than Arquette's, but not as bad as Russo's, because Russo won it and lost it that same night, and had no reason to even there was no reason. They couldn't even claim that it was for publicity or anything. There was no reason for Russo to win it.
In my opinion, the three of major promotions, obviously, the three worst title reigns ever are McMahon, Russo, and Arquette. Like those are the worst. Okay, like they've got to be right. Like, and at least Vince is kind of believable because he's yoked to the gills. Like, so he's probably at that. But really, don't put the belt on yourself, dude.
Yeah.
Like just don't. It might be worse than Vince's.
Yeah.
Because at least Vince's title reign, he's Vince. He's the genetic jackhammer. He's yoked. He's got the corporation.
He held it like a full day, right?
Yeah,
didn't he relinquish it like a day later or something?
And he had goons.
Yeah.
So at least that I can. Okay, you gooned up and you healed up and you managed to win it. But yeah, like Russo, and it would be in the Russo Arquette tier. He would be the only wrestler in my mind to fit into that tier of championships.
Arquette won it when DDP won it for him, and he just rolled over into a pin. But yeah, I don't know. Just and what does it say about Rollins? Like how are you gonna Rollins is gonna lose to Corbin, who immediately gets squashed by Lesnar?
Well, the idea is that he's Seth's injured from the beatdown, so I know don't try to use logic to dissect this. The idea, at least what is being bantied about and rumored, is that Rollins is going to go to the ring and sell the injury and the beatdown, and he's going to be injured when the match starts. And then Baron Corbin's going to win in a very heel opportunistic fashion. And then Lesnar comes out and crushes Corbin. And what that does is it protects Seth from losing to Brock. I know I don't like it as I don't
know. Like after the beating he took on Raw, and then him go to the pay-per-view injured from that beating, and that being the reason he lost, that doesn't protect him from losing to Brock. He already lost to Brock at that point. I'm like, that protection's gone. It's a fallacy to think otherwise on WWE's part.
Well, and just the idea of putting the title back on Brock is absolutely disgusting at this point.
Especially since some godforsaken reason he got the freaking boombox briefcase thing over with people, and I don't know how, because I think it's stupid.
The I don't know, man. Certain people you can just get anything over with them. It's like the argument we were having about online with Marks about Orange Cassidy.
Yes.
I don't get it. I thought it was terrible, and they're like, "It's over. Just deal with it, you WWE Mark." I'm like, "You want to call me a WWE Mark? Here, go listen to our show."
Yeah.
And then come back, and if you still want to call me a WWE Mark, well, then I'm really not going to listen. And
to be fair, somebody asked online, well, we know guys are going to go from WWE to AEW, but who's going to be the first guy from AEW to show up in WWE? We know what's going to happen. And I'm like, Orange Cassidy. Yeah. I'm like, Vince is going to be like, that's some good shit right there. Yeah. Give him a pooper scooper and let him hit people with it. And then them not sell.
Right.
Yeah.
Like gently tap them with the pooper scooper.
Yes.
Oh my God. To conserve his energy.
So we're talking about Baron Corbin here.
Why?
Did you see the who won the 24/7 championship on a golf course?
Yes, former WWE champion Jinder Mahal,
who apparently has the opposite symptoms of what Baron Corbin does right now, where Baron Corbin shows up in the ring in street clothes. It looks like Jinder shows up on the golf course in full gear.
Full gear.
Yeah.
Full gear on the
He
golf course.
was full gear ready. And man, people were eating that alive. Like people were like, what the hell?
As sad as it is, probably the most entertaining thing on the main roster right now is the 24/7.
Well, our truth being pulled out from under the ring on the frickin' table was super funny. It's the first thing with that championship they've done that I've actually like popped for.
So, man, give it up for Truth. And he was one of the guys that, Moxley mentioned. He's like, Truth, he will do anything because he's just so happy and he's such a fun-loving guy. He goes 100%. He goes, all out, but he will do anything just because he wants to have fun and enjoy his life. Right?
If he goes all out, I think Vince will have a coronary.
Well, but that's how he gets over, because he legit loves. He doesn't mind being a comedy act, and he's having fun doing it, and he's throwing his personality into it, and he gets it over, right? Like he's one of the other guys. But to go back to Moxley just a little bit, since how talented, how and this applies to the WWE roster in general. How talented are some of the guys that are getting over with the crap they have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean.
Like how talented is like a guy like Rollins? I mean, and I know, we saw him on the indies a little bit and stuff, but these guys have grown a lot being there, right? Like how stupid over could Bray Wyatt be if he were somewhere else?
Yeah. I am pleasantly surprised that they haven't ruined AJ Styles. I'm like, I don't know who AJ paid off. I don't know what favors he owes or where he signed a contract in blood, but somehow AJ Styles has been a multi-time champion in WWE and hasn't done even as dumb of gimmicks or dumbest storylines as he did in TNA. Like some of his TNA stuff was a million times worse than what WWE's done with him. So I'm just like, I don't know how this happened.
There's always an exception that proves the rule.
Yeah.
And AJ's the exception.
I mean, and then on the other side of the coin, you have a guy who was the hottest free agent in the world at the time. Former NXT champion when they brought him to the main roster. And then they made Shinsuke Nakamura, the king of strong style, into the guy who hits people in the nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how in a world where they can take someone like AJ, use him properly, get him super over as like the face of one of their programs. In that same world, they can take a talent like Shinsuke Nakamura and make him the guy who punches people in the dick.
Yep, the low blow experience, Bob.
The only way I want to see Shinsuke Nakamura be the guy who devastates people with dick punches is if it's Shinsuke Nakamura versus Joey Ryan, so I can see what happens.
Fair enough.
In fact, if that happens on the indies, I'd have to figure out a way to see it because I'd pop for that match.
Oh, good Lord. Well, it would be more enjoyable than what we're getting on a week in, week out basis on the main roster programming. So, Bob, you did mark out a little bit in the last 24 hours.
A little bit. Check out the set, man.
Yeah, well, not just that, but you got really good news about Starrcast 3.
Yeah, and then that's what I was getting to. If you check out the set, it's all kind of Sting and Mick Foley here.
All right, yeah.
There we go, man. First two guests announced for Starrcast 3. Sting and Mick Foley. And Sting is one of those guys I have been trying to track down for a long time. He's always somewhere when I'm in a different place. Like I'm in Chicago, they had him like in Niagara Falls. I was in Niagara Falls. I think he was in Detroit. It was like every time I'd go on a vacation somewhere else nearby would have Sting there. And hopefully everything, stays where we're booked the way it is. It looks like he's going to be at Starrcast 3 in Chicago, where I just happen to have platinum VIP tickets already.
Well, get ready to pony up those Benjis, because I know those autographs aren't going to be cheap.
It can't be much more than I spent getting the entire NWO signature. I mean, so I think it'll work out just fine, and I'm excited. Now it's just to decide whether or not we got to wait and see if the Nature Boy's going to be there. Remember, he had to cancel on Dallas. So if they book him for Chicago, someone might have to buy a big gold belt.
So I will throw this out there. Nate is restarted his YouTube channel and is doing short shoot interviews, just one-on-one from his phone. I guess his family kind of showed him how to operate the phone and upload to YouTube on his own. And he had a channel, right? And it had been dormant for years. Yeah. And after he got out of the hospital, he cut that promo in front of the big screen, saying he was back and stuff. And and that's up there. And then there's a part 2 to that. And then he has a third episode where he's talking about his former agent that embezzled a bunch of money from him. Yep. And kind of it's just him just basically talking and having a conversation with his fans. I think if he keeps it up, this could be really cool, because Rick's 70. We don't know how much time hopefully he keeps, chopping death right in the throat and just stays around for another decade. Yeah. Right. But absolutely. But go check out his YouTube channel, man. It's great.
As we talk about his agent, that's something that needs to be dealt with. And this is the second elderly celebrity who is completely beloved by the genre that he is from, who is being taken advantage of in their old age by people put in charge of their money. We've seen elder abuse of Stan Lee, and we've seen that people were taking advantage of him and his money. And the communities that these guys are from need to do better taking care of them and making sure that kind of shit's not happening, because it's completely uncalled for. And we as fans need to, make sure we demand that these guys are taken care of.
Well, and then this isn't exactly the same circumstance. This is, it sounds like, people are scumbags. Look, famous people with a lot of money. There's a huge long history of their agents and, people screwing them. Like, this isn't just, strictly a,
did you happen to watch the video, or? Because I have not yet, but from what I've read, it sounded like this agent started embezzling money when Rick went into the hospital, thinking that Rick might die and that he'd get away with it.
It does sound that way, but this is also somebody that Rick had a 20-year relationship with. So this is not again, it's a scummy person being scummy. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, the Stan Lee situation, the talk is that his daughter was involved in this elder abuse. So, I mean, once again, it's somebody you've had a long-term relationship with.
Scummy people. Yeah. But I mean, this kind of thing happens, in Hollywood, or any sort of industry like this. I mean, athletes, it happens to athletes all the time. You see it, boxers especially, not as much anymore. And this is something that has gotten a lot better in the last 10 or 15 years. Think about in the 90s, how many guys, especially like boxers and stuff, their management took just gross advantage of them and left them with nothing, and the NFL is another great example of that. People scamming NFL guys and then they wind up, broke or whatever. And the bigger sports leagues have gotten better in trying to direct their players to reputable finance people.
Yeah.
Like big companies, established. But this is still going to happen. Whenever you put somebody in charge of your money, you're taking if you're not staying on top of it yourself, at least to a degree, right? Like you're checking up on it and following up, you do run a risk. I mean, look what happened to Dane Cook, right? I mean, that's a great example. His brother, just took him for millions and millions and millions of dollars, just lied. So, I mean, it's a common thing. I'm glad that it seems like Rick's in a position now, with this fame and notoriety and everything that he's got going on. This isn't financially devastating to him. He's towed that line a few times with his spending habits in the past, but and obviously anytime somebody steals from you, it's bad. Like you don't want to lose money. You don't want to see that. I'm not saying that it's good. I'm just saying he seems to be in an okay place. It does look like, he's going to do what he has to do, and there's going to be some lawyers and things like that. So, I mean, it's good to see he's up and he's cutting promos again, and he looks good. It does seem to be in that promo, that first promo back, it does seem to be a little more serious. The health issue seems to be more serious than the family let on, but it was not nearly as bad as like TMZ and some of the media was portraying. But he did say, he spent 5 days with a tube in his throat. So, like, I mean, I'm glad he's back. Rick's a legend, right?
Yep.
So, we'll see if he's there. And yeah, we definitely got to hope for that, right? Like
definitely. Another thing I've heard a lot this week, and this goes to Ric Flair as well. I've heard people comparing Johnny Gargano to Flair and Shawn Michaels into the respect of his matches have been so great in NXT that he is a better wrestler and a better performer than Shawn Michaels or Ric Flair. And I think a couple people brought up really good points in that Johnny Gargano has never had to put on a major match with a busted back. Like he has never had to, carry a company on his back with serious back problems the way both Flair and Shawn Michaels have had to do. So, I mean, making that comparison, especially this early in someone like Johnny Gargano's career, is unfair to him, and it's unfair to the other guys in that equation because Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair have earned their place at the top of that list of in-ring personalities and in-ring workers.
Look, you can't put, when you're talking Ric Flair, you got to be careful who you put up there next to him, right? I'm willing, if somebody were like, look, he looks like at the same point in his career, like I'm seeing a lot of things I like. All right, I'm willing to listen to those type of arguments, but when you're saying better, no. Ric Flair drew money for 30 years. That put butts in seats. And no offense to Johnny Gargano, Johnny Gargano hasn't drawn, a 1/1000th of the money that Ric Flair has.
Yep.
Okay? Like, that's just facts on the ground. It's Ric freaking Flair. Okay? Take it down a notch. It's like AEW is going to kill WWE. Take it down. Take it back.
Yep.
Take it back. WWE is a $1 billion company that has an established 40-year reputation. Just, yes, we like what we're seeing out of AEW. Yes, we think that AEW is going to do really well in the market where there's a giant gap. And AEW is not going to put WWE out of business overnight.
Nope.
Okay, if it happens, it'll take 15 years and serious mismanagement on WWE's part.
Mhm.
Okay, like anytime somebody speaks in these crazy absolutes or just throws things out there and it's like, it's not, it's the best ever. That's why I was so hesitant to say worst draw ever for so long.
Yep.
And now I'm like,
And now it's like every damn week.
Now it's like every damn week. Like I think we're there. Okay,
Yeah.
like especially when we laid out that case, considering the talent and everything else. But
yeah, it's one thing to put on a bad Raw when you don't have the talent, but it's one other when you have all the talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to have a hot take for hot take's sake, it usually doesn't work, and it definitely doesn't hold up.
Yep.
Look, you go out there and you spout off some crap, and then who knows what happens. Like Gargano goes to the main roster, man, his run's done. He's gonna be on freaking Main Event or 205 Live or brawling for the 24/7 championship, or he's gonna be a character on the Firefly Experience, or he's gonna be
given some Italian gimmick that he has to try to get over. Yeah.
Pretty much. He'll be given the Italian Experience, and that'll be the end of that.
Yes.
So he is too small for Vince. Like we said, AJ's the exception, and AJ's what, 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
Like he's not a big guy, but he's bigger than Gargano, right? Like Gargano is kind of on the smaller side even for NXT.
Yep.
At least I don't know. To be fair, I've never stood next to Gargano, so it's hard, but like even when you compare him to like other guys on NXT,
yeah,
he looks like the smaller guy. Like he looks a little bit smaller than Cole, not drastically.
Yep.
And Cole's not a big guy.
No,
like,
Cole's
I've
not a
stood
big
next
guy.
to Cole.
Yep.
Cole's like I'm 5'7". I'm not a tall dude, and Cole does not tower over me. Okay,
yep.
So it's Gargano's just too small. He'll never get a real legitimate shot on the main roster. So to be like, he's better than Michaels or Flair, well, he's never going to get that shot in this system. Maybe he goes to AEW and blows it out of the water eventually,
or New Japan or something. Yeah,
and in 10 years we can come back and have this conversation again. But
yep.
Slow it down there, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for a long time, like they're the argument of like Shawn Michaels or Ric Flair, and at this point it's 1A and 1B, and you can pick whichever one you want is A and B, because each one will say the other is the greatest wrestler ever. So when the two guys who've worked together in the ring, give each other that compliment, you don't have a whole lot as a fan to argue against.
It's so subjective,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like because if you're talking about like greatest wrestler of all time, okay, like I mean, there's a handful of names in that argument, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of Thez, like the old school guys, Thez and Gotch, and Strangler Lewis, and like real old school
San Martino.
Bruno,
yep.
Obviously. Harley Race is in that argument. Like Harley Race drew money for 30 years.
And then you got to throw like Andre the Giant's name in there, Hulk Hogan.
Exactly.
I mean, could they drew big money even though, it wasn't about in-ring skills,
Nope.
But I think the reason Flair and Michaels get that notoriety from so many people is because they both could do that in-ring work and draw money. And I think that's the difference with like a Hogan or Andre, where they definitely drew money. And you could argue, you look at Andre. Andre probably drew more. Andre definitely drew more on a performance basis than what probably anyone in the business has ever done. But
well, no, and yeah, I can't. There are people who can speak much more thoroughly to this than I can, but nobody really drew more money than back in like the 20s and 30s, like like Strangler Lewis, and then George Londos, the Greek guy. They went over to Europe, and they sold out like arenas in Europe, and they would sell out huge arenas. So again, but they weren't having as many matches. So, but Andre is definitely up there. Like he was an attraction. He was a huge money draw. But
and he's one of those guys who did it like in the U.S. He did it in Europe. He did it in Japan. He did it in Canada. Yeah.
But some of those gates, like some of those gates on the guys in the 30s and 40s, I've listening to the Cornette shows where he does like deep dives into the history, and listening to some of the shows where people go and talk about that era of wrestling, like from the 20s to the 50s, where they were just drawing absurd gates. I think that was really like the biggest guys that were drawing the most money ever came from there. But it was a smaller pool, and they were doing giant business. Andre's definitely, it's Andre and Hogan are the two guys in the modern era, right? It's the two guys that have drawn probably the most money. Would probably be, it'd be Hogan. Hogan's got to be number one, right? Like he's like Andre drew, but Hogan was like next level. It was like merchandising, and it was
I think Andre definitely had the bigger draw, but I think Hogan had the bigger, like Hogan kicked off the merch wars, and like he definitely outsold everybody merch wise. And beyond those guys, I mean, besides those two, I mean, you got what, like Austin? I mean,
Rock and Austin.
Yeah.
Like Rock is really, I mean, Rock is parlay, and Rock had a much shorter window because he parlayed his success into he is an A-level movie star now.
Yep.
So
most of the time Rock did that drawing, he drew opposite Austin or on same cards as Austin. So I mean, he had a very, very short time where Stone Cold wasn't around, where he was the guy drawing. But yeah, I mean, those are the guys. I mean, and Shawn, didn't draw nearly to what those guys did, but like I said, I think it has a lot to do with how talented Shawn and Rick are in the ring, on top of their drawing power.
Yeah, I mean, again,
and the longevity of both guys. I mean, Shawn took that time off and was able to come back and have a whole second run that people can argue whether or not that's better than his first run. So. And then Flair just went forever.
Yeah, Flair just kept going.
Yeah.
And just kept going and really never stopped. So, I mean, it is an interesting debate, and that's what it is. Like, you kind of can poo-poo guys when they throw somebody in there that doesn't belong, but there's that handful, and then there's the difference between when you ask fans who they think the best wrestler is. Right.
Yep.
And then you kind of ask wrestlers, because they're different names. Some of those names are the same, like Flair, Michaels usually comes up, Brett comes up a lot, but like one of my favorites comes up a lot when you ask other wrestlers who their favorite wrestler is Arn.
Yeah.
Arn's a great example. Like his guys who like worked with him that were like his peers and followed just after him, where he was already established and they were breaking into the business, like guys rave about Arn.
Yep.
Like,
I love Double A.
And he's a guy that's kind of overlooked, but he's a wrestler's wrestler. And there's a handful of those out there too.
Yep. And
where
I mean,
guys are like wrestlers.
Two of those guys, I mean, I said it over Starrcast weekend. I'll say it again. I mean, Pillman and Owen Hart. I mean, those guys, if tragedy had not struck, I think those guys could have been, or even would have been at the top of WWE's card and been huge draws for that company, because I think they both had the skill to do it. I think they both had the mentality and ability to understand the way to do it, and they both were amazing on the microphone. And yeah. Well,
Bob, there's a few other little things we could hit on, but it's like I don't even think we need to at this point acknowledge the ROH debacle with the fan.
Yeah, we need to wait till ROH actually comes out and says something.
There was allegedly an incident with a fan. A lot of people have responded. It seems like the fan is doing some attention seeking. I will say that it does appear that Bully Ray maybe made a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're gonna have security pull somebody in the back, maybe don't have one of your talents. I know he does some official capacity stuff.
Yep.
You might not want to have Bully Ray be the guy that is confronting the problem fan. And that's about all. We'll see what the Ring of Honor investigation.
You shouldn't have any of your Ring of Honor like backstage personnel be the one confronting. You should let your security do that, and that's what you hired them for. You should specifically have a head of security. I'm not sure if Ring of Honor does. We mentioned how when we talked earlier about how WCW had a guy who with head of security, Doug Dillinger, who, if that kind of thing would have happened, he'd be the one to handle that, and he kind of handled the security teams that they hired to secure the ring and such. So that's kind of the person who needs to deal with that. I don't know if that's Bully's capacity, but if it is, it shouldn't be.
Probably not the best idea in the world, but it does. There was this guy came out and posted a really long Twitter thread and said he got intimidated, pulled backstage, he didn't know what's going on, and a lot of people have come forward, not just the talent, but other fans in the crowd said that he was being that guy.
Yep.
And I'm a big supporter of being able to say almost anything you want when you buy a ticket, right?
Yeah.
But look, it's a TV taping, and you shouldn't be cussing, right? If you got to go, if you're trying to cut a promo on a wrestler, or trying to vocalize the heat that they have, you don't need to cuss.
Yep.
Get a little more creative, right? And you don't need to be overly graphic in terms of like sexual with the women. And that's the issue. Allegedly, he was borderline sexually harassing a lure. So you don't need to do that. And like, there's plenty of ways you can attack them. Trust me. Like, there's plenty of ways you could pile on them. This is the guy, like I think I've said it before on the show. At the TV taping, Ring of Honor TV tapings, I'm the guy that yelled at BJ Whitmer, "Hey Whitmer, kill yourself."
Yeah.
Look, like he had atomic heat at the time. That was when he was working the angle with Dalton Castle, wasn't it?
I believe so.
And he was just being uber Whitmery. Like, I don't even know any. He was so good as a heel, man. At that run as a heel. And people were just piling on, and he was walking by, and he just gave that smarmy look, and he ripped up that one kid's sign, and I was like, "Hey Whitmer, kill yourself!" And I kind of got the side eye, but that's about as far as I'm gonna go. And I don't mean kill yourself, but like, come on, I'm not dropping F-bombs, and I'm not, I mean, we were being brutal to Maria Kanellis. We were piling on her, and she's whatever. Talking right back at us, right? Like, I mean, but nobody was like, "Hey Maria, I'm gonna rape you" or anything. That's uncalled for, right? Like that can we all agree there's a line? Like, you don't need to go there.
Yeah. And I mean, apparently from the sounds of it, this guy did this the night before in another town, and then came to the second show and started doing it some more. So at that point, I mean, when you are yelling sexual things at female talent and then follow them to another show, that is a moment where people think, all right, what is this guy gonna do? He's following these people from show to show. He's saying some pretty over sexualized things. Do we need to be worried about our talent safety outside of the doors when they leave to go to their cars and leave the building? I can totally understand a worry in that situation. And, we'll see what Ring of Honor finds out. They haven't released like a statement as far as what the findings are, but the more that comes out, the more it sounds like this is a situation where a fan was acting dickish, and Ring of Honor may have not handled it as well as they could have.
Yeah, and that could just be that sounds like that maybe they need to tweak their security policy a little bit. again, I think just for appearance's sake,
Yeah.
not that they're like, not that Bully did anything grossly wrong or anything. It's just in my mind, from the outside, you kind of avoid that if he's not the guy doing the confrontation.
Mhm.
If it's one of the management staff or whoever you have to do security, whatever, like not having talent be the one that is like, hey, you got to tone it down, or otherwise we're going to throw you out. It just looks better.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I mean,
optics are important.
and I mean, some people were saying stuff like they, we're talking down about Allure and saying that they need to be more friendly with the fans, and I can tell you, like I am a 6'3", 280-pound guy. These girls are very small in comparison to me, and on both occasions that I got to meet them, they were extremely sweet. I got hugs. After taking the photos, they were super gracious. They did not in any way to me seem like somebody who didn't care about the fans, and they didn't seem like anybody who we're going to be intimidated by, bigger guys thinking that they're just there to oogle them without merit. Because if anything, a bigger guy, they if they were afraid of the male fans in general, I wouldn't have got such a warm response from them. So anybody thinking that needs to, push that out of their head.
And this guy said he's like Bully was way bigger than him.
Yeah.
So like he's not a big guy to begin with.
Yep.
Like Bully's not small,
Yeah.
but he's not, he's not Randy Orton for Christ's sakes. Like he's not a huge guy. So I don't know. We'll be following that story. I think though, B-Double, we should kind of call it an evening and go ahead and Tope Suicida. Sorry, I've been watching too. I all that Mauro Ranallo calls. I love him, but holy crap, is he intense?
Yeah, well, apparently you need to watch some Michael Cole as well, because you're trying to bypass the outro there. You need someone in your headset yelling at you, "Damn it! Say pooper scooper!"
Oh my god. No. Yeah, guys, as always, like, comment, share, hit the bell so you're notified of all of our posts.
Yeah, Tope Suicida the bell.
Tope Suicida the bell. Yeah. That's tonight's official move. Yeah, like I said, way too much Mauro Ranallo. Dude, I love listening to him, but can we, before we just outro, how the hell is like the NXT, another thing, the NXT announced team that much better than your main card announced team, when and including a new addition? Beth Phoenix is real raw, but she's got some potential.
As they said at Starrcast on stage with like Mark Madden and Tony Schiavone and King and JR and all them. It's really easy to do good commentary when you don't have some maniac screaming in your ear. And it's true.
It's good shit.
Yeah.
Say
it's good shit. Damn it, or you're fired.
We're gonna end this good shit. And B-Double, Tope Suicida the button, so we get out of here.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.